Hi guys, this is Tablet-News.com and I'm here with a tablet called the Cube i7 Remix. It's a pretty big device. It's an 11.6 inch slate that runs Remix OS and it's quite affordable. We got it from GearBest, priced at $196, but there's the occasional offer that drops the price even more, so around $196, sometimes $180. It's a massive device. It's meant for video consumption and for games. Once again, an 11.6 incher. And now let's get to the review. So a huge tablet, but not so thick, at around 8.5 millimeters in thickness, which means it's not very thick, and it weighs 720 grams, which is quite hefty. It has a landscape orientation, so it's rather long rather than, or better said, rather wide rather than being long. Anyway, with its thickness, it means it's thicker than the iPad Pro that measures 6.9 millimeters in waistline, and also heavier than the iPad Pro by about 7 grams. In the meantime, it's lighter than the Microsoft Surface Pro 4 by about 66 grams, and the thicknesses of the two models, this one and the Surface Pro 4, are very close. Other than that, we have a pretty good grip thanks to the material here. This model is not very thick considering the diagonal, and it has big bezels, so you can keep your hands easily on the device during those long gaming sessions or video watching sessions. Other than that, I have to say that because of the weight and the way of holding the tablet for long hours, you will get tired eventually because it's a big device in the end. The chassis is made of metal and plastic. It has a pretty solid build, and our version comes with black at the front side and a nice shade of blue at the back that we can see here. Now let's see what's happening on the side. So at the front we have this home button. Interestingly, the device runs an OS based on Android, and this home button is designed so that it looks like a Windows button. Anyway, home button here, front camera, a series of sensors over here, and this is a bit of a fingerprint magnet, this facade. At the back, main camera, some inscriptions here, including the fact that we get an Intel processor inside. And now let's see what's happening on the other side. So at the top you can find the on-off button, the power button that is, and the volume buttons that are kind of thin, not very easy to find when you're looking for them by tapping this area, but eventually get used to them. At the bottom you can find the keyboard docking mechanism that includes these little dots here that are meant to safely charge up the keyboard accessory, from what I know. I also have to mention that the metal edge that you can see shining here tends to chip pretty easily, so if you bump this into a table, a chair or something, it may chip. On the left side we have the mother load of ports. We have the audio jack, we also have the mini HDMI, one of the two micro USB ports for charging and the other one for OTG action, and finally the micro SD card slot. On the other side we got two speakers that deliver the sound pretty well, as you'll see later on. Overall, the Cube i7 Remix delivers a pretty premium feel. It's comfy but still pretty heavy. Now on the hardware side, we're being treated here to a display that's an 11.6 incher, an IPS screen with a full HD resolution, and inside the slate you can find a quad-core Intel processor, the Intel Z3537F, clocked at 1.8 GHz. The GPU is the Intel HD Graphics Generation 7, and other specs include 2 GB of RAM, 32 GB of storage, and a micro SD card slot. Other specs include a 5 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel front shooter, and on the connectivity side there's Wi-Fi 802.11 BGN, we got Bluetooth 4.0, there's also 2 micro USB ports, GPS and mini HDMI at last. Then we got the sensors, a light sensor and a G sensor, and now it's time to discuss the battery. So we're dealing with 8400 mAh unit, and the charging is done at 5 volts and 2 amperes. In our usual test that involves HD video playback in a loop with Wi-Fi on and brightness at 200 lux, we achieved 3 hours and 57 minutes of playback, which is one of the lowest results we ever measured at Tablet-News.com, and we beat no models with it. In spite of that, we got beaten by quite a few tablets, including the Samsung Galaxy Tab A 9.7 that scores 10 hours and 13 minutes. This one only scores 3 hours and 57 minutes of video playback. The Nokia N1 has 8 hours and 32 minutes, and the Evolio GoFun 3G 4 hours and 22 minutes. We also did a PC Mark test that simulates continuous usage and got to 3 hours and 21 minutes, which is also quite low for such a big tablet. At least we beat the Utok Hello 7Q LTE Slate that only scores 2 hours and 53 minutes in the same test, and also beat the Evolio GoFun 3G that scored 2 hours and 34 minutes in the very same test. However, other models that surpassed us are the Chewy V8, 3 hours and 29 minutes, the Asus ZenPad 7.0, 4 hours and 19 minutes, and the Asus ZenPad S 8.0, 4 hours and 59 minutes. The charging of the Slate is kind of long, considering how much time you actually get it to run, 4 hours and 18 minutes. It's still better than the one of the Samsung Galaxy Tab S2 9.7 that requires you to charge it in 4 hours and 20 minutes, and also much better than the one of the all-view Viva Q10 Pro that needs from you 7 hours and 45 minutes of charging. Other models, other tablets that charge faster are the Nokia N1, 3 hours and 52 minutes, iPad Air 2, 3 hours and 40 minutes, and the Asus Transformer Book T100Chi with its 3 hours and 14 minutes of charging. We also have a power manager. It's available as an app, not as a settings area, and doesn't do much of a thing here. We can only see this graph here and the app power settings, and you can enable apps to run in the background, and that's pretty much it. So the battery is a big letdown so far because the charging is much longer than the video playback time. Now, as far as the acoustics go, we got the two side speakers here if you're holding the tablet in landscape, or the two bottom speakers if you're holding the tablet in portrait. Now, we're going to have to rely on the Google Play Music application to play our tunes, and we're going to start off with the equalizer, which is pretty typical if you've seen this app before. However, it looks like back in the day of KitKat because the OS we're running is emulated on KitKat. So we got the genre presets, we got 5 custom channels, and bass boost and 3D effect for good measure. Other than that, I guess it's time to actually test the speakers and hear them out. So here we go. Okay, now some conclusions. We got a pretty loud and clear experience. The sound is crisp, we have a very good bass, and I have to say that the sound is particularly good for the games and video watching, while the music itself can cover up a conversation, which is good, especially in a smaller room. I also like the way the percussion is heard when the speakers are playing. And now we did our usual decibel meter test, and let's see what came out of that. So here we go. This is the decibel meter we use, and it showed us a value of 86.4 decibels at the front and back. This means we beat the iPad Air 2 that scored 86.3 decibels, the Asus ZenPad 7.0 with 85.6 decibels, and the Xiaomi Mi Pad 4th generation 83.3 decibels. Still, we scored below the Nokia N1 with its 89.8 decibels, Samsung Galaxy Tab A 9.7, 87.6 decibels, and all-view Viva H7S 87.3 decibels. I would say that the acoustics are quite good, so no complaints on the multimedia part of things. Okay, now we proceed to the display. As I said before, quite a big screen, 11.6 inches Full HD with an IPS LCD panel. There's no video player, so we're going to have to resort to the gallery yet again. Okay, and now let's actually play a video, provided we can find one. Here we go, movies, and the typical video sample we used in all the reviews. So first things first, the screen seems to be pretty bright and crisp. The colors are realistic and quite vivid. There is a 178-degree wide viewing angles here, so no problems with that. As you can see, the screen is a bit of a fingerprint magnet. You just saw the fingerprints. The text looks pretty crisp, not as crisp as it would look on a 4K or Quad HD screen, but still. And I like the fact that this tablet is not hugely reflective. The pixels are of the RGB stripe kind. You can see them under the microscope here. And we also used the lux meter to measure the brightness of the tablet, and we were not exactly impressed. We achieved 313 lux units, not the worst value in the world, but also not the best. We beat the Xiaomi Mi Pad that scored 310 lux, and the Asus Transformer Book T100 Qi with its 281 lux. We also beat the Asus ZenPad 7.0 with its 274 lux, but we got beaten by the good old Nexus 7 2013 that had 500 lux, the Samsung Galaxy Tab S2 9.7 with 460 lux, and the Galaxy Tab A 9.7 with 402 lux. The display settings are also available here, accessible in a jiffy. Here we go. Display, we got brightness, screen timeout, font size and battery percentage, and that's pretty much it. This tablet is good to use as a secondary screen, so you can place it on a special stand next to your desktop monitor, and you can watch movies or other things while you're working on a PC and want to be distracted by something else. Anyway, the screen I would have to say is decent. That's the best I can do. But I have to say that the colors are good and the screen is pretty crisp. Maybe a bit more brightness could have been usable here. Well, let's get to the camera. Obviously, I can barely hold this for, let's say, 20 minutes, let alone take pictures. So let's put this cube here and fire up the camera, while also not expecting many great things from it. Here we go. Very minimalistic interface and very basic options. Only the timer and the shortcut to the front camera, plus the video and photo shutter. As you can see, quite a bit of lag when taking photos. The results are also not very impressive. I have to say that it's a minimalistic experience. You get the bare minimum to take some shots. You can see some examples here. This one is very blurred and moved. This one is overexposed. The colors look okay, I'll give it that much, but not more than that. It's a slow camera, has mediocre quality, and for such a big tablet the camera doesn't quite matter. Okay, excuse me. Now let's get to the editing options to find a surprise. And the surprise is a negative one. So if I want to do a bit of photo editing, guess what? No option for that. So I press the more tag, we got slideshow, rotate, set picture as, details and print, share or delete. No trace whatsoever of photo editing, which is a bit of a bummer in my book. Now, if you want to talk about the performance, it's time to talk about the temperature first. And for such a big tablet, the temperature is quite decent. We achieved 33 degrees Celsius after playing the game Riptide GP2 for 15 minutes, which means the heat is pretty well spread throughout the device and there's no overheating here, and that's always good news. Now, as far as the web browser is concerned, we have the stock one here that for some reason forces us to use the device in portrait mode, which I don't quite like. And before everything starts, let's clean up the memory and resort to Chrome, that luckily lets us use the device in landscape. Okay, so let's access Tablet-News.com. That loads pretty slow, I would have to say. Let's access one of the pieces of news. CES going on these days, so keep an eye on our site. Anyway, the virtual keyboard is kind of big even for this screen. The keys are huge but comfy to use. The fact that the stock browser forces us to use it in portrait is kind of strange, but anyway, Chrome is here to save the day. On the connectivity side of things, this model does not do 3G or LTE. You can connect it to an external 3G modem. However, in spite of that, you get Bluetooth 4.0, you get Wi-Fi BGN, Miracast, GPS, micro USB, actually 2 micro USB ports, and we have a mini HDMI. And the only things I regret is the lack of NFC, Wi-Fi A, Wi-Fi AC, and incorporated SIM slots since the device is so big. Now it's time for the benchmarks, which many people are fond of. So I decided to compare the Cube i7 Remix with the Samsung Galaxy Tab A 9.7 and the Samsung Galaxy Note Pro 12.2, which was a big deal back in the day. This is a battle between the Intel Z3537F quad-core CPU from this model plus 2GB of RAM versus the quad-core Snapdragon 410 plus 2GB of RAM of the Galaxy Tab A from last year, and the Exynos 5 Octa plus 3GB of RAM from the Galaxy Note Pro 12.2. So here we go. In quadrant we scored 12,484 points, while the Samsung Galaxy Tab A, the 9.7-inch version, scored 13,626 points, and the Galaxy Note Pro 12.2 15,299 points, and that's quadrant alone. So 12,484 for this one, surpassed by the other models. Now let's see how it did in Antutu. We actually tried out two versions of Antutu. In one of them we scored the older one, we scored 32,658 in the version 5.7.1, and in the newer version we scored more. In the version 6.0 we scored 44,648, which is quite impressive. In the meantime, the Galaxy Tab A, bigger version from last year, 22,000 points, 353, and the Galaxy Note Pro 12.2, 34,000 points and 74 at the end as well. And Nenamark is also here with a score of 59.7 frames per second, while the Galaxy Tab A scored 56.5 and the Note Pro 59.9 frames. We also have Velamo in here somewhere, tested with Chrome in the HTML5 test, a very good score of 3,305 points, while the Samsung Galaxy Tab A only got to 2,003 points and the Note Pro 12.2 got only to 1,794 points. 3D Mark is in the mix as well, and I have to say I was actually surprised by the result we got in 3D Mark, because it's actually quite a big one. In the iStorm Unlimited test we scored 13,578 points, while the Galaxy Tab A a mere 4,402 and the Galaxy Note Pro 12-inch version 12,784 points. In GFX, let's try and find it, we didn't have the TRX off-screen 1080p test, but we do have Manhattan with a score of 297.1 frames, while the Galaxy Tab A had 275 and the Galaxy Note Pro 177. Geekbench 3 should also be here, and let's check out its scores. In the single core test 691, in the multi-core test 1776. And meanwhile the Galaxy Tab A had 471 and 1433 in the second test, and the Galaxy Note Pro 940 over 2741, quite the difference. We did a speed test here, came out pretty well I would have to say, 24 mega per second in download and 20 in upload. The rivals had 19 and 19 for the Tab A and 24 and 25 for the Note Pro 12.2. Browser Mark was also tested, scoring 1706 on this model and 1202 on the Tab A from Samsung, plus 786 points on the Samsung Galaxy Note Pro 12.2. SunSpider is in the mix as well, and the lower score the better. Here we had a pretty decent score of 900 points. The rivals had 1240 and 531 respectively, and finally we get to Base Mark X, and here we scored a good score, 15,425 points, while the Galaxy Tab A was stuck at 4,056, and we didn't have that test on the Galaxy Note Pro 12.2. Overall, this model wins 6 out of 11 benchmarks. The results are quite good. The GPU is kind of so-so, not very impressive, but the interface is quite fluid. We didn't encounter any lag, and the games such as Riptide GP2 benchmark game runs just fine. I said before, there is no lag, but I stumbled upon some freezes. The tablet froze on me 2 times, which is not exactly acceptable, and it has more to do with the power button rather than the system, so blame it on the power button. As you can see, the gameplay looks great, and I mean the graphics here. Pretty responsive tablet, nice looking water. In spite of the benchmarks showing that the GPU is not much, games run just fine. And that's what the tablet is meant to do with such a big diagonal: watch movies, play games, and generally get distracted. Okay, so the water looks nice here, all the speed effects are nice, and it's time to go to the operating system now. So, as I said in the unboxing and throughout the review, we're running Remix OS here. Let's see what that means, provided we can press settings. Anyway, here we go. About device. So this is Remix OS 1.0 based on Android 4.4.4 KitKat. It's not the newest version, that's for sure, and this is an operating system, Remix OS, that's made to look like a desktop experience. Basically, standard Android would have looked weird on such a big format, and the idea was that Remix OS makes it look closer to a desktop, and it's a good idea at its core. We have all these new icons, a new theme, and a new approach that relies heavily on the taskbar at the bottom. As I said before, the interface is quite fluid, and the taskbar can actually be hidden out of sight if you don't need it. So I can press hide taskbar and get rid of it. I can swipe up and activate it, or I can keep it here, and I can also pin my apps to it to have them handy, or remove them from it to get rid of them. Also, all the apps I have opened recently, they're running at the same time in the taskbar, and I can alternate between them with ease, which is kind of a cool thing. And other than that, we have these two virtual buttons here. One is the home button, one is the back button, which pretty much speak for themselves. And on the right side, we have a menu button. So let's say you're in Chrome, you open the menu button, and we have the following options. We got phone, full screen, or quit app, which speaks for itself. Quit, you just quit. Full screen and phone. Well, switching to phone, we'll get to this interface that mimics the diagonal of a handset and lets you do other things while overlapping windows. So if you choose to have another app like this, you can have multitasking with floating windows on the screen, and then you can revert to the big screen if you want to. And once again, this menu button helps with the memory cleanup, and that's pretty much it. That's all the special things that Remix OS has to offer here. Now in the notification area, in the drop-down area, you can find obviously notifications, and if you swipe to the side, this style-based interface reminds me of Windows 8 just a little bit. These are quick settings, and we got options like airplane mode, we got GPS, screenshot, auto rotation, lock, mute, and the actual settings. Of course, there's also the brightness slider, and somehow the settings simply will not answer my command. A bit shy it seems. And here in the settings area, you can find the connectivity options like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Miracast display, and more, including VPN. Sound options, display, storage, application manager, pretty standard stuff, location services, security, language and input, date and time, accessibility, and experimental features that I wouldn't recommend messing about with. Okay, and this model actually supports mice, so you can attach a mouse to it. It supports right click and left click, and if you keep the screen pressed, let's see what happens. You can trigger the wallpaper area. No widgets here, I fear. This model supports a keyboard made specifically for it, and also supports Alt plus Tab and various other shortcuts to switch between apps. It supports Ctrl plus C to copy, Ctrl plus V to paste, and all the typical shortcuts are available for Word, for example. You can create shortcuts on the screen. For example, you have a shortcut here for an MP3 file, and you can create all sorts of shortcuts from the file manager with ease. It's a simple and intuitive interface that's made to imitate a desktop one. Now is the time of the review where we analyze the pre-installed apps, and this screen here seems to be reserved for the apps specific to Remix OS. So we got email with these panes here that remind me just a little bit of the way Hotmail used to look like. So we have three panes, one with the sections of the email, one with the actual emails, and one with the content of the emails. Then comes the file manager, very minimalistic, very well thought out, and a very nice interface. I'm pretty sure it can also show you stuff from the cloud, haven't tried yet. Then the gallery that you already saw, pretty well organized, but a huge letdown with the fact that we do not have photo editing options. Then we got to settings, camera, calendar, also looking nice. Notes, standard note-taking application, lets you create lists, add a note, do a checklist, add an alarm, and sync your notes with the service called Guide service. Then we have the calculator and the toolbox with app search and downloads. The list of pre-installed apps continues with browser, Easy Locker, that's supposed to apply special protection for your phone, although this is a tablet, not a phone. Anyway, we got yet another file manager, kind of uglier than the first one, and we got games, Google settings, King Root, memory booster, which comes in handy if you want to give the device a quick boost, and clean up the cache and memory. Here we go. Then play music, play store, the RAR application to the archive stuff, sound recorder, WPS Office to get your office needs going. You can open up Excel files, PowerPoint files, all sorts of supported items are available with this app. Then we have YouTube, this app that has a name I cannot read. And finally Gmail and Chrome are available here. And those are all the pre-installed applications. So not much bloatware, which is always good news. And now it's time for the verdict regarding the Cube i7 Remix, one of the biggest tablets I've tested lately, and it stands out through a solid build. It's pretty good to watch TV shows and movies on a special stand next to your PC. It's affordable, goes below $200, which is always a good thing. The acoustics are quite good, and the screen is pretty much okay. There's no overheating, the UI is fluid. We have a mini HDMI port available, 2 micro USB ports, an original operating system that keeps it simple and minimalistic. There's no bloatware here, luckily, and the performance is what I would call okay. On the cons side, it's a huge tablet, it's really heavy on my hand, I can really feel it right now after this review. It has a pretty weak battery, you do not get to 4 hours of video playback, sadly. The camera is poor, even by the big tablet standards, and there are some freezes here and there. The charger cable is very short, that was a bit of a bummer. Remix OS is not exactly available in the new version here. The new version has all those cool features, we have the older version. I hope an update will come. And finally, those portrait apps are a bit annoying. You saw a few of them earlier. They really have no place on a big tablet. So overall, I would call this Slate good for some occasional binge watching of TV shows, some gaming. This atypical UI with Remix OS has some potential, and an update would make this tablet even more appealing. Overall, people should buy it for the fact it doesn't run stock Android. That would be, let's say, bad on this format. With Remix OS you get right mouse clicks, you get better keyboard support, better file manager, and generally a simpler organization of Android. Too bad for the battery and too bad for the big weight of the tablet, otherwise it's a solid buy for below $200. This is it from Tablet-News.com. Bye bye.